welcome to another episode of Math Magic with Jen. Today we're going to be starting our unit on fractions. And today we're just going to do the basic introduction, what it looks like when third graders first see it. And yes, it typically happens in third grade, and then of course it builds into fourth and fifth grade. So let's go ahead and get started. What is a fraction? A fraction represents part of a whole is typically the way that we start. So usually this is introduced with shapes that are cut into equally sized pieces. Oh my gosh, that part is probably the most underrated piece of this is that the students need to understand that they're supposed to be equally sized pieces. Now, what I say supposed to be is that when your students are drawing them by hand, it's hard to get them exact. But hopefully they've all experienced having a slice of cake that was smaller than someone else's or a slice of pizza that's smaller than someone else's. And in this instance, we want them all to be the same. Okay, fractions have two pieces, a denominator and a numerator. So the denominator is in the bottom and it's the total number of your pieces, the equally sized pieces. And the numerator is what we're highlighting, shading, calling attention to. So here in this first example, you can see that we have a circle cut into 4 equal slices or pieces. So that denominator is 4. There are 3 that are shaded. So this would be representing the fraction 3/4. Tape diagrams. We've seen them in our videos so far. They are quite useful also for fractions because they're easy to draw. Plus, you're going to see in a little bit further on in this video about fraction tiles, which are really, really a handy class tool that you can use, which look like tape diagrams. So it's almost like we're already preparing them for fraction tiles if you're using tape diagrams. So here we've got 5 pieces. So that denominator is 5, 2 are shaded, so 2/5. Okay. So it caught me off guard at first when I was looking through the Common Core textbook. And I mean, I have my degrees in math, my bachelor's and master's, and I'm like, fractional unit, what the heck? Okay, so when an object is divided into equal parts, each part is a unit fraction of the whole and has a special name. So what we're saying is that when you cut something in two, we call it halves, or the singular is half. So those special names that have to do with fraction pieces, that's what fractional units are. Light bulb. Okay, so when we cut it into 3 equal parts, of course, it's thirds. When we cut it into 4 equal parts, fourths, fifths, sixths. So that language right here is what we mean by a fractional unit. Okay. Now that we know that, here's an interesting piece from the Common Core textbook in their workbook homework. It has these pictures, so they've already been practicing writing fractions, right? Like this would be 2 out of 4, this would be 5 out of 8. But now what we're highlighting is the fractional unit name. So they're having to call that name out first and then basically write their fraction in words. So here in this first picture, because we have 4 equal pieces, this would be fourths, and 2/4 are shaded. Okay, so for this one, if we count, we've got 8. That one to me is one of the hardest to write, but there we go. 8s, and we have 5/8 are shaded. Now, I am going to go ahead and highlight these next two, even though I know that you guys can follow along with this. Sometimes students get confused when the entire object is shaded, and it's like, yeah, you can shade the whole thing or part of it. So this one, obviously, we're shading the whole thing, which is fine. So 3/3 are shaded, and of course, that is thirds, and 3/3 are shaded. Okay. And then this shape kind of cracks me up. It kind of looks like a bug, a ladybug without dots. I don't know. That's what my brain wants to see. So even though the shape is kind of strange, it is one whole shape cut into 2 pieces. So this is halves. And of course, we would say if we're going to capitalize it, hold on, all the others are capitalized. Okay. 1/2 is shaded. All right, I feel bad for not feeling in this one. 3/3. fine. I did it. Okay. All right. So let's look at the next piece of this. Remember, this is introduction to fractions. For those that are already thinking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, oh, we'll get there. This is just like the first week in a third grade classroom of what does a fraction look like? How do we talk about it? How do we write it? What are the words? Okay, speaking of introducing, we want an element of play. Third graders, yes, they are, they're 9. They're probably ready to do, more older kids stuff. But there's nothing wrong with play. And here we have fraction tiles. So these are fantastic. These are typically made out of a really hard, thick plastic. So I don't want to say they're indestructible, but they're close, okay? They're really nice. Because they are so nice, they're also expensive. I think I got a set of 20 for somewhere around like $120 or something. I'm just saying that I think it's worth the investment for a classroom. Maybe if you have parents who are asking, hey, how can I help contribute to this class? I'm not saying they have to buy a set, but they could maybe give money towards a set. But yeah, these are fantastic. What's really great about them is that they look like tape diagrams. So as you can see, each one is a different color. So we have the 1/2s are this lighter pink, the thirds are orange, the fourths are yellow. The only drawback of this is that at first glance, it looks like we have all the numbers from 1 to 12, but we don't. So we're missing sevenths, we're missing ninths, and we're missing 11ths. Is that a big deal? Probably not, but just be aware. I guess you can make your own set with, laminated paper, but there you have it. Okay. Circles are also really popular. So this one is a less expensive version because it's made out of foam. They have some that are made out of cardboard. They have some that are magnetic. So you could stick them on things. You'll also see some that are two-sided, where one side has the fraction and the other side has a decimal. So I'm just letting you know what's out there to shop and check out and see what you like. Okay, and of course, pizza fractions are also kind of fun. It might be hard to see from this picture, but they do actually have the fraction on here. So this one is cut into thirds, and it's really hard to see, but it does actually say 1/3 on it. It's a little bit easier when you actually have it in front of you, but that could be also some fun play happening. Okay. So I mentioned earlier briefly about equally sized parts. Yeah, it's an important discussion point. We probably take it for granted as adults because we can see what's cut equally and what's not, but kids may not have a lot of experience actually taking something and cutting it and seeing if all the pieces are equal. And so it's really just about them noticing and maybe also verbalizing why they're not all equal. So this first one, we do have that cut into 2 equal pieces. So this one's good to go. This one would be an interesting discussion point because it almost looks like it should be because 2 are, but up here we have a rounded corner and we have a cut off corner. So this is not going to be all equal parts. There are 2 equal parts, but not all 4. We need all of them. Okay. This one we're good to go. This is another interesting discussion. The fact that, this top and bottom are equal, and even these 2 in between are equal, but not all 4 are equal to each other. If you have a kid with an IEP that's working on fine motor skills, you could also have them maybe even make shapes out of Play-Doh, with a plastic knife to try and see what do equal portions look like. Just thinking outside the box of different things that you can try. For a typical student too, I will say though, a classroom full of Play-Doh, I would probably not be down with because that stuff, even though I love it, is messy. You know, if you ever introduced it to a classroom or a group of kids, it's fun until you have to clean up. Okay. Speaking of one more fun thing, you could also have them practice cutting shapes in different ways. So again, fine motor skills, you could also have construction paper. construction paper squares and have them actually physically cut with scissors to see which way you can cut it. So we have a cross, we have up and down, we have diagonals. There may even be someone who's really creative and does some sort of like wiggle. You might. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but you might have two equal pieces. All right. What about improper fractions? So an improper fraction happens when the numerator is equal to or bigger than the denominator. And typically as adults, when we see them, we automatically probably try to convert them. So like we've been taught, right? Take this 5/4, and that's one whole thing with a fourth left over. Okay. And typically how we do that is by division. We divide 5 by 4. It goes in once. And then that remainder ends up being what's left over of the fourth. Now, as wonderful as all that is, and I'm not saying that kids aren't going to learn that because they are going to learn that arithmetic skill. But in the first couple of weeks when they're introducing fractions, maybe we want to introduce it without the arithmetic. And I know that sounds funny, but maybe this is too big of a topic to jump into all at once. So maybe we'll want to introduce it instead by shapes. So we say, okay, let's begin with the shape of your choice. So what do you want? Do you want a circle? Do you want a tape diagram? Do you want a square? Do you want a rectangle? What do you want? Okay, so let's just say that we decide together to do a circle. Say, great. What's that denominator? So that denominator was a 4. So we have to cut this into 4 equal pieces. Beautiful. And then we ask our students, okay, shade 5. And they're going to be like, I can shade 4. I don't have enough. Okay, if you don't have enough, I want you to make another shape. And so that's what happens down here is that this is our sort of original. We realize we don't have enough to shade 5 out of 4. So we have to draw an extra one. Okay, now we're going to shade all 4 and then one extra one. And what you'll notice is that this is now going to turn into a mixed number of 1 and a 4. So you can do this. It gets a little bit harder with something like 8/3. 8/3 is a little trickier because you're going to have 2 whole objects, right? So if you wanted to try doing it, let's do a tape diagrams instead. So this is our first object is 1 tape diagram cut into thirds. So I'm going to try to shade 8/3. So I say, great, let's make that object. Let's cut it into 3 equal parts. Oh, I got to shade 8. I only have 3. All right, that means we got to draw another one. Okay, well now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Still not enough. I got to do one more. Okay. No. We get to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you'll notice that we end up with 2 wholes and a 2/3. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit more about shapes for a second. So you may notice that in my notes, I've got these cute little shapes happening. So I'd like to suggest you try out this free online tool by the Math Learning Center. They have web apps. They also have apps you can install, but I typically just use the web app. And play around with it. You can, once you open this up, you can come down here and click a tape diagram and it'll ask you how many boxes you want and you can do them as many as you want. And the same is true about the circles. You can have 12, you can have 12. It'll cut it all for you at once. So it's pretty sweet. The other nice part is that if you notice, I've got this little tab to the side which says how much each one is shaded. And that's this little button right there. After you've drawn your shape, if you hit this button, it will go ahead and it'll say 0 out of 4. And as you shade in different ones, it'll fill it into the side. Now, how do you shade? It's this little ink blot. Okay, so play, see what you think. I think it'd be pretty fun to use. I will warn you though, if you are teaching at an actual school district, your IT may block certain sites. So this is a .org, but hopefully you could get to it. But I just want to warn you, it is possible that it might be blocked by your home server. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology there. My husband would kill me because he knows exactly what to say there. But just know it could get blocked. Okay. Speaking of mathlearningcenter.org, they actually have about, I think, maybe 12 different apps. This is another one. It's a pattern app. So you can come over here, you can choose different shapes. What I like about this is that each shape has a different color. So this hexagon is yellow, the trapezoid is red, the rhombus is blue, the square is orange. What I also like is as you hover over it, it says those words. So if I hovered over this, it would say yellow hexagon. So it's linking those words to what it is you're grabbing. Anyway, you can play around with this lots of different ways. They have these pictures down here that you can choose, and you can actually cover the shape with cover the picture with different shapes. So that could be a fun activity. But if we're talking fractions, if this yellow hexagon is one whole unit, then we might ask our students, okay, well, what does the red one represent of the yellow hexagon? So this red is 1/2 of our yellow hexagon. Okay. And kind of similarly, these green triangles end up representing 1/6 of the entire hexagon. So if I've got two of them, then that would be 2/6. And anyway, you can play around with it and see what you like. You don't have to introduce it into your classroom. I'm just trying to give you different resources that you could choose from. That's what all this is about, is filling up your toolkit of different things that you can use either in your classroom or with students at your own home. If you're a parent, if you're a helper, whatever it is, we just want to get kids to learn and be excited. With that, that was my introduction to fractions. The next one's going to be on comparing fractions and how do you know which fraction is bigger. So until next time, have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.